Hello, good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation. It is Sunday, September 8th, 2024. And I'm Eric Murphy. Welcome to the show. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Sorry for the late start. I was trying to make coffee, and I just ran out of time. So it is me and the water today. But I am ready to take your calls. Before I dive into, bigger topics, I do want to get the phone number out there. We have open lines. Our call screener is ready to take your call. If you have wanted to talk about what you believe and why, or, I'll get into the rest. But first, let me put the phone number up there. It's 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. to call toll free, and we are waiting for you. That said, this episode is about breaking the mold. All the calls don't need to be about it, but I figured we should make some time for it. We've had numerous calls over the last few weeks talking about what happens after you deconvert. How do we, together get over like generational trauma, and I've met and talked to plenty of people who, have kids or want kids. And after leaving their faith, they go, hey, I don't want to raise my kids in a church. I don't believe in that anymore. But how are my kids going to learn morals? Where are your kids going to get their morals? It's not necessarily that they think that church is necessary, but we haven't replaced it with anything, The same when it comes to parenting, people who grew up getting spanked, right? They are told that, the best way to discipline a child is to spank them when they act out, and then they have kids of their own. They don't want to spank their kids, but they don't know what to do otherwise. And that's where things like, gentle parenting come in. That's you can't just have a vacuum there. You need to put something else in your decision-making process. And I feel like I've done it in a lot of different places in my life, that it's not just about faith. That was one of the first things to go. I needed to rethink my understanding of politics. I needed to rethink my understanding of sex, gender, and relationships with other people, right? It's one thing to be told, for a guy, right, being raised, as male, in the United States, there are all these expectations of being a provider, of performing productivity, of, hiding your emotions, toxic masculinity, all of that. And so much of that was couched in religious terms for me. There was this sermon, and just this whole set of doctrines around the man of the house being the guardian of the house, in the same way that, the church leadership, guards and has the stewardship role over the congregation. And so, breaking those things apart was a really big deal. Because when you leave that, am I still supposed to do that? Am I still supposed to be in a leadership role in my home? Do I still need to try not to cry when I'm sad? Are those things still in effect, or does something need to change? I feel like there are so many places that's been the case, and I want to talk about that. Obviously, if you want to talk about what you believe and why, if you have a spiritual belief, if you have a religious conviction, if you have a supernatural experience, I want to talk about it. Let's find out why you might think that that's the case. I'm going to put the phone number up one more time, because I do have. Boojins in the chat says, what you're talking about is culture, not just religion. That's true, but when you're raised in an environment where religion is the blueprint for the culture, then you can't say it's one, not the other. what a beautiful position to be in, to think that those are separate. But for a lot of people who are raised in religious environments, that's not the case. That said, I can only talk for so long. I do need callers. So if you do want to call in, today is the day. I have open lines and a call screener ready to talk to you. The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can call online by going to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. I'm ready to talk to you. In the meantime, I do want to give you all a couple of updates here. Let's see. It has been a rough week. It has been a depressed week. There are just issues. But I've been doing a couple of depression streams on Twitch. You can find me at Eric the Heathen on Twitch. Just midweek playing video games. It has nothing to do with philosophy and religion. It just has to do with me mostly playing Dead by Daylight and hanging out with people, relaxing, and just creating an environment where people can keep each other company. So if you want to check that out, please do. I am also seriously considering simul streaming YouTube and Twitch for the show. I've heard of other content creators doing it, and I've heard of people getting banned on different platforms. So if you have an idea of what that's about, join me in the after show. We do an after show every episode. Afterwards, we go to Discord. The link is in the description for this video. You do not need to be a patron. If you are, you get a little, special things by your name and all of that. But you can just join us, and I do want to know what the experiences are there, because man, that'd be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? Just kind of getting out in front of new people and expanding the reach that this show has. Bee Gees. Bee Gees? That's how you pronounce it? Binoojinhs? Bee Gees? I don't, Beenogees. Ah. Yeah, no, I don't know. All right. That's enough of that. Let's go ahead and talk to our first caller, and our only caller so far. Let's talk to Stephen in Pennsylvania. Stephen. Oh. Stephen, you are on the air.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I have COVID.
No!
Yes. Do you remember when I called last week, for our regular listeners, when I called last week, I had said that I had gone to a charity event and how important it was for community, and that was where I got COVID. So, yeah. It's my first time, though, in all these years of the COVID crisis. This is my first personal crisis. But, yeah. So, anyway, I'm okay, though.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. That sucks. I was employed by a fintech company for a while last year, and they sent me out to a conference. I got COVID for the first time, and I never forgave them.
Well, and it's hard because I mentioned about when I called last week about Hope House and how this is a really important cause to me. And it kind of plays into today's topic, actually, with generational trauma, but we'll get to that. But it was really important for us to be there. And it turns out that 5 of us that interacted at the thing are all positive for COVID right now, so far. I don't know if other people are keeping it to themselves or what, but 5 of us within the day that I posted, and I reached out to everybody that I saw at the event, and I said, I have COVID, my husband has COVID, so you might have COVID too. And people started testing, and there we are. So it sucks, but yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing's fallen off or anything.
Okay.
So it's
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Good. But you wanted to call about generational trauma and the struggle to overcome it.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So my family has a lot of it. I have it on both sides of my family, and the way that, and I also had, my own trauma growing up, because I am a product of this, but also there are things that, so I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's the brain fog, so you'll forgive me. Yeah. So Mom came from a family that was very abusive.
Yeah.
And she both of her parents had issues. Her mother was a narcissist, which is its own set of stuff. But her father was born in Ukraine, and his mother emigrated to the U.S. right after he was born and sent for him when he was 10.
Okay.
And it made him grow up to be very misogynistic, very ill-trusting of people. And that was something that got passed on to my mother. She had a very abused childhood. She wasn't allowed to wear the color red. It was all these crazy-ass things.
Why not the color red?
And my grandfather said it was what tramps wore. And he's saying this to a 5-year-old. And
that
who doesn't
red
even know what
traps.
a tramp is.
Oh, it's a tramp?
Yeah.
Like a
tramp.
Tramps wear red.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, and there were lots of misogynistic things as part of her childhood, but also she felt very silenced as a child. She and her siblings. And there a lot of weirdness. Like her sister had to run away to go to college. I mean, literally get transported in the middle of the night.
Honestly,
so that my grandfather wouldn't beat her.
Honestly,
kind of thing.
I've wound up meeting a lot of people when I was working at the atheist community of Austin. People who had to do very, very similar things, who were homeschooled. Actually, the funny thing is that bringing that up, as a kind of YouTuber content creator, all of my friends are YouTubers as well, pretty much. They're all atheist space content creators. And I would say 90% of them were homeschooled, hard fundamentalist religious backgrounds, or what is it, missionary kids. And then when they wanted to go to college, found that there was a really big pushback on the idea of wanting to get higher education. So some did, some had to run away, just like you said, to get that higher education, or wound up never graduating and becoming YouTubers right away.
Right.
But did your grandpa not want your mom to go because she was a woman?
Well, it was her sister. And it was because women didn't need college degrees. And my mother ran away when she was 18 because she knew that the police couldn't bring her back. And my grandparents more or less wanted her in the house as free labor.
Of course.
To cook and clean and do all these things. So it was this great big thing.
Yeah.
And so when my mom had me, I was her first child. It was really important to her that she allow me to ask questions, and that she also monitored her own behavior in terms of, there's a story I like to tell where I was 3 and I was drawing on the wall with a crayon, and she saw me, and she wanted me to stop, but she didn't want to scare me because I didn't know I couldn't draw on the wall with a crayon. I was just being a kid. And she knew that intellectually, but at the same time, she was having this emotional reaction of, oh no, I have to clean the wall. And so she went through this whole inner monologue about how to handle the situation without scaring me.
Yeah.
Because that was how she was raised, was to be scared by it. Now,
yeah, absolutely.
Having said that, my mom made a lot of mistakes with my upbringing. And when I was an adult and had the discussion with her, what I found made a big difference was she owned it when I said, you did X and it made me feel this way.
That's awesome.
And she was able to say, oh yeah, I did do that, and I'm sorry I did that. And she validated what my feelings were over that situation. And it, by comparison, on my father's side, all right, you're sitting down, so this is good, and you're smoking something fun, hopefully.
I just vape juice that I make myself. I do want to make sure that we're staying interesting for everyone who is watching. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just going to compare and contrast. So on my father's side, my grandfather killed my grandmother,
Hmm.
and my father was 6 and found his mother's body.
Jeez.
And the family swept it under the rug.
Yep.
It was never discussed. He had PTSD, and all of this got translated down to me and my siblings because his issues were never dealt with. So when I was responding to generational trauma being the descriptor. I know deconversion, and there's a piece of that because I asked my mother, "Why did you raise me in a religion?" And it was the same response that you just gave. She didn't know where I would get my morals.
Right.
She didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But she was still trying to do something in terms of dealing with what her family had brought to the table and erasing that as much as she could. Or on my father's side, no support, no ability to do that, and it went on until my father's death. Yeah. When my sister confronted the family and said, "What the hell happened to him?
Yeah.
And why did this happen?" And that was when all the truth came out. And, and he had committed suicide, and he was 55 years old.
Yeah.
So, there are
just
different paths you can go down. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to reflect that back towards you, I have a very similar history. My dad's side, there's a lot of I don't want to stigmatize mental health, but unmedicated, undiagnosed, serious problems led to a lot of self-harm on my dad's side that went through generations. And my dad had to run away from home as soon as he could join the military for his own safety. And he didn't know how to handle it. And so when I turned 18, he had this thought that he needed to do the same thing to me. And so I needed to, as soon as I turned 18, run away from home for my own safety too. And that was just like, how do I deal with that as a man? How do I prevent that? When it comes to breaking the mold, when it comes to, overcoming that generational trauma, what I found is, I just don't want to have kids. I wound up just like ending the line. But there are a lot of other ways to deal with it. I guess that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do the call, is because not everybody does the, intense, vasectomy route.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it didn't change any of us in terms of wanting to have kids or do things like that, because I do think our moms, because my father was not a factor in our upbringing, really. He was gone by the time I was 3. And my brother was 9 months old, and my sister was from a previous marriage and had already been abandoned. So it was really up to our moms across my siblings to handle the situation. And there were a lot of things I think they did right, but they were struggling and they were young. And, I guess what I wanted to say about it is, if you're experiencing this or you're worried about deconstructing it, there are multiple paths to take. Whether you have children or not, whether you make that choice, but also my point was in terms of dealing with what did get down to me and confronting back to my mom on it, the fact that she owned it and said, "Yes, and I'll work on this with you," made a huge difference. And we don't all have that benefit. So for people who are struggling with it, whether it's deconversion, whether it's generational trauma, whether it's any of these things, it is really difficult to go through by yourself.
It is.
And don't beat yourself up for that either. Don't add to your trauma by traumatizing yourself.
And also,
it's okay.
And also, if you have a job that will give you insurance, get therapy. Honestly, there's no way I would have been able to do that on my own. The crazy thing is, after years of therapy, there was still this religious side of it that had been informing it pretty much the entire time, that no therapist that I had gone to up until that point had been okay with going over with me. And so it felt like I was dealing with each little thing, right? Maybe it's internalized misogyny, maybe it's toxic masculinity, maybe it's homophobia, or political insanity around birth control or abortion or whatever, and it took me a really long time to figure out that a lot of those things had something in common, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
And to that point, I also wanted to say, in terms of therapy, is good for everybody, whether you label your situation as generational trauma or not, because our families are fucked up.
Yeah.
And in all sorts of different ways. And some of them lead to, I think we've gotten, and this isn't to minimize trauma for anybody, but I think we've gotten sensitive to certain terms that we're quick to jump to saying it's trauma or saying it's this or saying it's that. All of these things affect you, particularly when in your developmental period as a child, whether we classify it as trauma or not. And it's never a bad idea to unpack what motivates us to do things in certain ways and try and find healthier ways of coping with things.
Absolutely.
And, for me, again, with my family, I think clearly it was trauma, but the fact that I had a parent in particular, but other relatives, my sister is fantastic with this too, when we talk about stuff now, to have someone who is on your side and you're able to have those open and frank discussions and unpack things together, because they're as great as therapy is and as great as therapists are, and my hat's off to all of them, there's something about commiserating with someone who truly does understand from the same perspective. Like my mother,
if you can,
has a similar perspective. My sister, absolutely.
Yeah, if you can.
If you
I
can,
agree.
you're right.
I didn't have that opportunity, but I can absolutely appreciate that would be really useful for the people who do, for sure. Hey, Stephen, you have helped.
You got another call, didn't you? You got another call.
You've helped get the ball rolling, and I really appreciate it.
I'm glad. Sure.
Thank you.
No worries. I'm happy to talk to you again and enjoy the rest of your show. And maybe I'll be on the after show. We will see.
I would like that. You take care of yourself.
Okay. You too. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I want to put the call out as well, because this isn't not. I think that for people who are raised with with ovaries, I think it has hit even harder in a lot of big ways. If you were ever raised wanting to be a Proverbs 31 woman, or you were told that Ruth kind of laid the blueprint for what a good wife or what your self-worth should be based on passages, I want to talk to you. So if that's something that anybody who's watching has experienced and wants to kind of share about, that is totally something that I would love to have a conversation about. That said, we have a couple of more people. So let's go ahead and talk to Connor in Texas. Connor, another frequent flyer on the show. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I did not get to make coffee in time for the show. Yeah, I know. So other than that, though, I'm just glad to be here.
Well, I think I've had enough coffee for the both of us this morning.
Well, then maybe you can help make sure this call stays interesting. What did you want to talk about?
Talk a little bit about generational trauma through my family. I can go back about 4 generations with it. It's more like the cycle of abuse kind of thing, and also about how I've personally, like even after therapy, come to deal with it myself.
Okay, yeah, talk to me.
All right, so now me and my siblings, I'm just going to start off. We did not have the worst of it, but there was still some physical stuff with my parents. And
Okay.
this was all mostly my dad's side of the family. Like, his mother was also the disciplinarian, and I only go as far back as to her father, because that's what she was able to tell me about. Now, for my dad and his siblings, like there's a couple of let's say horrific slash laugh a little stories on that.
Okay.
Like so the one I've heard is like and these were more like not like planned out kind of stuff that happens across the generations. It's more like reactive kind of stuff.
Okay.
So this with my grandmother, there's a story about when all of them were kids and she was just at home brushing the hair for one of my aunts, clipping a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Then another one of my aunts, the story goes, came up and was demanding the brush. And then after a while, my grandmother goes, "You want it? Fine," but accidentally throws the scissors, gets her in the knee, and they have to take her to the emergency room. And the story was, "You were running with those scissors."
Okay.
Yeah. And but it goes all the way back to her dad, who was, from what she has told me, was really he was really bad with it, especially with with all the drinking he did. Like the worst story I ever heard from my grandmother was about how her mother decided to throw out the alcohol because she was tired of his constant drinking from it.
Yeah.
And then he tried to strangle her as she was trying to run out the door from him.
Damn.
And the only reason she got saved was that her sister showed up in time to see what was happening and get her out of there. And I'm not too sure on the details, but I think she left him after that point.
I as long as it's safe to do so, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, holy crap. Have you found, like, I'm trying to tie this back around to the topic today. Have you found?
Well, you said it was generational trauma. So
yeah. How has that kind of impacted future generations? Is that something that you found that was kind of put on you, or something that has needed to?
It's kind of one of those things that just because it's kind of in a way normalized. Because as I was saying, it gets less severe every generation, but when it got to my parents, they were just doing simple disciplinary stuff, nothing into any of those extremes. They thought it was just what they were raised with, and that it was the right thing to do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also with them, with my parents, there was kind of the occasional got out of hand. Nothing that would warrant going to the hospital over, but still.
Yeah.
And when it comes to having to process this in a way that with both of my parents, one of the things that made it easier to find forgiveness and all this was discovering their own mental health issues over the years. For my mother, she wasn't a disciplinarian, but she was kind of the scary one when she would be. But that goes back to her emotional disorder that she needs she's been on medication ever since I was a kid for. It was she even when I kind of brought up this big old conversation to let everyone know when I started my medication for a different emotional disorder, and how I was suicidal at that point. All this stuff was coming out. She said that for 20 years she was on this medication. When I was a kid, there was a 2-year period where she was carrying a gun in the glove box in case she ever decided to take herself out.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's a lot of mental health stuff for all this.
I honestly,
she found the right medication after a couple of years, and it did help. And as the years have gone by, it's gotten a lot better with everything.
Good. I kind of want to pull together some of the threads here on this. I definitely, absolutely personally relate when it comes to, family views around mental health and how getting that, looked at, seeing a professional getting on medications, has a really, really big impact on kind of breaking those things apart. I also kind of want to touch back on the fact that you said that it felt normal.
I feel it's one of those things where, as a culture, it gets normalized. Is what I meant.
Well, no, both, absolutely. So when I was in,
let's just be clear. As a kid, I didn't think this stuff should have been. I didn't think it was normal. I was on the receiving end of it.
But you didn't think that that's just what every kid dealt with?
Well, it was not really something that got brought up, so I had no reason to believe any of my friends had to deal with it at the time.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, I go back to, um, the spare the rod, spoil the child stuff. That when it comes to disciplining your kids, that I feel like a lot of parents are and historically have been shamed and browbeaten into abusing their kids, as a way of punishing them. And when that kind of rhetoric is used, when that kind of language is used, it becomes incredibly normalized.
Yeah, like now that you bring that up, when I was 15, like one day out of nowhere, my dad goes like, "You're too old for me to spank you. Now I'm just gonna start punching." Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what really helps after so much time is when you finally get to the point where the person who does all this to you is like able to get to the point where they can, after some reflection, and honestly say to you, I'm trying not to, like, I'm trying to say it like in a way that doesn't like excuse them, but like I'm trying to figure out a way to say this where it's like it was a way to move on with them, recognizing that what they did at least was they were not perfect parents. They might have fucked up. Is the recognition that kind of makes it easier to like process everything to go with.
No, absolutely. And I think that is really, really important. I feel like, just kind of guiding this a little bit, understanding the context around a thing, right? Understanding for some people, the only way that they knew how to raise a kid was to spank them. Doesn't make what they did okay, but what it does is provide context for us to understand. And we can understand why people did things. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they should be excused or forgiven. You brought up forgiving earlier in this conversation, and that kind of stuck with me a little bit because I'm still not convinced that everyone deserves forgiveness. And I'm definitely not convinced that, understanding the context, right, means that someone should be forgiven.
Well, understanding the context helps to at least understand why they're screwed up. Like, you got to remember my parents' generation and their parents' generation, that time frame. I mean, everyone forgets how much lead was.
I mean, but I don't want to blame it on killed brain cells, though. Like, that feels like it's. You know what that feels like to me? That feels like it's removing.
Hold on, Eric.
Yeah, hit me.
Because there is this is known by people who study this stuff that lead actually when it gets into the brain does actually make people far more irrational and violent. And especially when it's consumed and ingested through either breathing it in or through food and water over years and decades, just over time makes people let's say a little more unhinged. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but stuff like this has to be taken into consideration. Like, maybe these would have been better people had they not had their brains fucked up. Maybe,
but also eating too many paint chips is not, to me, good enough. Because I think that there are plenty of people with low...
Paint chips, like it was in the water, food was getting washed with it.
No, I gotcha.
It was being breathed in from all that gasoline before lead was taken out.
I think you're more empathetic than I am, Connor. I think you're more willing to grant that than I am. I don't know. I think that there are plenty of people with diminished mental capacities, and there are plenty of people who get angry, who also can recognize that their anger can hurt people, or, not understand a thing, but know that hurting people is wrong. I don't want to remove people's autonomy, or not remove their autonomy, but I don't want to excuse away people's choices, I want them. I want people to own their choices. And like I said, like we can give the context. Sure, maybe some people, ate a lot of lead growing up. That still doesn't, to me, adequately excuse. Or maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're not talking about excusing their behavior, and my brain is reading that as excusing their behavior. Could that be?
I was bringing it up as understanding their behavior. Makes it
you know
easier
what,
to.
Connor? I now I'm on the same page. Okay. I
No,
realized
but
the problem was with me.
You're right about the choice thing about it. Like for me, like even after coming to realize all the stuff that was out of their control, like messed up in their heads, it still required the last part where they had to recognize that what they did, at the very least could have been wrong from their perspective. Just that self-reflection and admission that they weren't perfect in what they did and that they may have messed up along the way.
Yeah. And that's what I hope for. I don't know. I chose the topic for today, and I find myself getting angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. Can I ask you one more question before I move on, though?
What's that?
All of those things understood. What have you done to break the mold? What have you done to make sure that those things don't continue on with the next generation?
Well, I don't have kids yet, but my main thing is to don't hit in any regard. Just start from there as that's my starting point at the very least. I'm still working on issue with my so short temper is kind of like another thing that got passed on, and like one of the things that my grandmother told me when she was alive, when it's about how me, my dad, my uncle, and my brother in our own ways remind her of her father. And so that kind of has always been like a little sticking point for me, like the abusive drunk guy.
Yeah, it's raising, it's making her, draw comparisons. That's got to give that would give me pause.
Well, she in her older age, and when she was actually finally put on some medication that calmed her down and helped her to get a clearer head on everything. Like in her later years, her biggest regret in her life was the way she was also like her father, and the way she treated her kids, and how she wished she could have been a better mother.
That hits deep. Yeah. Connor, I appreciate you kind of opening up about deeply personal things like this. And I hope,
you know me, I never have a problem with this stuff.
I know, but I want to. I feel like I'm walking an interesting line. I normally talk about philosophy, atheism, skepticism, and when it comes to where that intersects with other things in our lives, I don't want to portray myself as a therapist. I don't want to portray myself as somebody who has the right answers to things, but I also want to instigate these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, listening to you in the last caller, I feel like I'm worried that I'm biting off more than I can chew. But
well, a great way to look at this is someone out there is listening that may just need this little push to get them to, at least if they haven't gone to therapy yet, or if they haven't started talking to somebody, to push them in that direction.
I agree. I like that. Yeah, if this show can help somebody realize that they can get help, I'm up for that. Connor, thank you for calling.
Yep, anytime.
Take care. Oh my goodness, I've got a lot of callers. I am digging this. All right, let's move on and talk to John in Canada. John, you're on the show.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. You want to talk about losing your faith? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess, as you know, for a long time I had faith, but over the last 3 years I've been feeling like it's been waning. I've been listening to you and your compatriots, and you make good points. Plus, I don't know, I guess I just feel like there's also scientific explanations, but at the same time, some of the religions still make sense to me, so I don't know where to fit in. I feel like a caught between 2 points.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. It sounds like you're speaking really gently, and I'm doing my best to make sure that I can hear you. But can I repeat that back to you? Make sure that I got everything.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're saying that you feel caught between a faith that you have always believed and what you feel are good points when it comes to there not being a God, and you're kind of feeling torn there?
Yes, because on one hand, atheists make a good point, but on the other hand, the theists make good points too, and to some extent, I still believe some of those things.
Sure. Like what?
Well, I still believe that. Okay, I just finished your conversation with 2 callers ago about the man being the head of the household.
Yeah.
I agree. Men and women should be co-partners. A woman has a voice, but I also believe the man should be the head of the household because someone should make it. Well, someone has to make the decision. Let's say the man and woman let's say it has to be made, and the man and woman disagree. Someone has to make it because they're deciding to vote, or else you'll be stuck forever.
Do you though?
Someone has to decide.
Like so let's kind of break that down a bit. So my first thought there is that we're obviously talking about like a cishet household, and we'll run with that, right? So you have a husband and wife, and that's fine. But what would exclude the woman from leadership there? Why couldn't she be the head of the household if there needed to be a head of the household?
Well, I know this affects women, but I believe the person who earns the money or earns the more money should make the decision.
Why?
I mean, why should that be the case?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Every answer is giving me more and more questions. Like the idea that you're assuming that in every cishet relationship, the man makes more money.
Well, okay, fine. Let's just say the person who does make more money. Let's put it that way.
The person who makes more money should make the final decision in relationships. That doesn't feel like an equal partner to me. What about gay relationships?
What about them?
Who's the head of the household there?
Okay, but I don't want to get down much into it. But in this situation, we have 2 partners, and a decision has to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Who should make it? Okay, how do you make a decision in this case?
Well, through communication, negotiation. You talk to each other, you weigh the pros and cons, and you make that decision together. I don't think that if you're in a relationship where you're consistently coming up against, problems that you cannot get past, then that sounds like it's a relationship that is not going to last. That sounds like a bad relationship. If you talk to your partner and say, hey, here's why I want this, or here's the pros and cons to that, you openly open your heart, listen to what the other person has to say, then I think most of the time you can work those things out together. You don't need someone to be the overruling voice. In fact, I think that if there was ever an overruling voice, right? Like if I have my partner V, right? If V or I was the overruling person, the other person, I think, would become very resentful very quickly. And I think that would end our relationship.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, I would be really resentful if somebody said, I'm the head of the household and I'm going to make the decision regardless of what you have to say. I would feel awful. I'd feel not listened to. I'd feel like I'm not part of a partnership. I'd feel like that sounds bad to me. And then if I'm gonna exercise my empathy and go, if the other person is being ruled over by me, I would expect them to become resentful too.
Okay, but what if you're the head of the household and every decision you make is for your partner and your children's well-being? You're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your partner.
You're still
You
still don't have a partner. A partner is somebody who does those things together with you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Have you ever heard the difference between like the golden rule and the platinum rule?
No, I haven't. I heard the golden rule, but never the platinum rule.
Okay. So the golden rule is treat other people as you would want to be treated, right?
But they teach in Christianity. Continue.
Oh, not just Christianity. Heck, that predates Christianity. You can find that in Hammurabi's code, which was written hundreds of years before the Bible.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like social species generally exercising empathy is not something that is owned by Christianity. I think Christianity has tried to adopt that and say that it's theirs, but it's all of ours. But let's go with the golden rule, right? So treat other people the way you want to be treated.
But you didn't tell me the platinum rule.
I'm going to. I was going to lay out the golden rule so that I can give you the platinum rule in as a contrast. So, what if, let me think. I keep thinking about kinks, and I know it's awful, but sure. What if I really liked getting slapped?
Some people are into that kind of stuff.
Sure, absolutely. So the golden rule means that I should slap you, huh?
Well,
because that's the way I want
wouldn't like that.
But that's the way I want to be treated.
Oh, I see your point. It doesn't make any sense.
Right?
Yeah.
The platinum rule is treat other people the way they want to be treated.
Oh, how they want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, I'm going to repeat your words back to you here, right? Let's say you were the head of the household and you were being as selfless as possible and only had other people in mind.
Yes.
You're still doing things through your lens. You're still only following the golden rule. You don't know what those other people want because they can have different wants and needs than you. And if you don't make those decisions together in a partnership, you're in trouble. You're taking away their ability to make decisions for themselves in their own lives.
Okay, but here's my question.
Yeah.
Let's say two people form a partnership, and the two people want different things. Then you can't really have a partnership because you're not going to move forward. There has to be some common consensus, correct?
Absolutely. I think that in good working relationships, all big decisions should be made through consensus.
Okay, I agree with that. Because, see, I personally believe, I'm no expert, but I personally believe that when two people come together, either man, woman, man, doesn't matter. I believe the two people should have the same life goals. They want to achieve the same things, and they're working together to achieve that end. Because that's the part of a partnership. They achieve something together. That's the whole point.
I'll even take that a step further. I think that in those healthy relationships, you grow together. You're different people, but through shared experiences and by sharing a life together, you set new goals together. Yes, you are helping each other achieve the same goals, but you're also building those out at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I don't expect to find somebody who's perfectly like me.
Well, there has to be a contrast, a complement.
Yeah, and that as you complement each other, right, you find things that you like about each other. You find things that you admire in each other. Oh my gosh, I'll tell you right now, V has a follow through and this incredible mind that is so quick and so smart, and I just admire them so much. And part of me, I think part of what keeps our relationship strong is we see things in each other that we wish that we had too. We'll find things that we admire and that we want to be better about and better at, and we help each other. Now, I want to take this back, right? We're talking about breaking the mold, and I feel like you presented a mold here, right? The mold is that there needs to be a head of the household. I don't think that there should ever be one. I actually want to push back so hard that I think that if there is a head of the household, it is damaging.
Damaging?
Yeah. It is. I feel like it breeds resentment.
Okay.
It fosters a sense of inferiority in the other person.
I see.
And it disallows those consensus conversations that you and I just talked about, right? Because you're following the golden rule and not the platinum rule.
Okay. I see. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, you go ahead.
Oh, no, tying this back to, losing your faith, right? This relationship conversation, it doesn't necessarily feel religious, right? It feels like something entirely different, but how much of this was motivated by what you were taught at church? How much were you deconstructing? And even if you do go back to the church, right? If you do say, you know what, I'm a believer, or you're an atheist, or whatever you wind up being, John, this conversation about relationships is still an important one, isn't it?
Yeah, because you see, I'm okay. I can't believe the list is on there, but I'm looking for a partner. I want to know how to behave.
Yeah, that's totally cool. Yeah, I think that actively listening and not thinking that you need to be the one taking charge like that is a really, really good start. Look for a partner. And let me tell you something. When I wound up kind of shifting that viewpoint, I start every first date by saying, I'm looking for a partner and not a damsel in distress.
Oh, okay.
And let me tell you something. There are plenty of people who want someone to solve their problems for them. And I feel like that's a sign of emotional immaturity. I want people who want to solve their own problems. Oh. I don't want to be somebody's sugar daddy. I want to be somebody's partner. Right?
You don't need that extra responsibility.
Well, I mean, not just that I don't need it, but I'm actively not letting that other person grow by taking on their shit. Right? They need to grow as a person enough to be able to handle their own shit.
That's true. Yes, they have to be an adult.
Yeah. That's a much better way of saying it than I said it.
Well, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you taking my calls when I call.
Hey, John.
Have a good day.
I really appreciate that you're deconstructing things. And I know I've said it to you over and over, and I'm going to keep saying it. It doesn't matter to me what you wind up believing, just that you have good reasons for it. And as long as you want to, have good reasons for doing the things you do and believing the things that you do, then I feel like it's going to benefit you as a person. And I appreciate you calling in.
Okay, well, have a good day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
I was not anticipating that. I liked that. Damn. Okay. I've got so many good callers. I love this. Oh, see, look at that. The lines get filled up and I am ready to go. All right. So do we go lighter and then heavier? You know what? Let's do a lighter call and then heavy. Let's do that. Sullivan in Idaho, you're live on the show.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, thank you for calling in. You called in about Proverbs 31.
Yeah, I just heard what you were saying about it, and I was raised under all those narratives and stuff.
Hey!
I don't think it really gets talked about enough, about like how damaging that can be to the way that men view women. Because when I was growing up, I looked at women. I was told that, like, you're like you only want sex, and you can't do any of that outside of marriage. So your only goal should be marriage anyway. So relationships with women don't make any sense unless you're trying to marry that person.
Isn't that such a weird, like, dehumanization of men, by the way? Just this idea that you're just this sex-starved monster.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, God made me this way. I'm confused. Like,
no, it's
I never really understood that at all.
No, yeah, and it's just an excuse for people to act terrible, right? It's creating a breeding ground for monsters.
Yeah. And like for me personally, it's kind of embarrassing to talk about just because I actually believed all that crap, and I like actually believed that I was a sexual deviant that wanted nothing from women other than that. So like, how is that going to make me like a better person, better for treating women or anything like that? It's not. It's just going to give me this weird, twisted narrative about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to break down the embarrassment piece, because I don't think you should be embarrassed about it. You know, if you're in that environment and you're taught that, it totally makes sense that that's kind of the conclusion you came to. So like, I want to give you room to, you know, you're going to grow as a person. And as long as you're growing, then I don't see why you should be embarrassed. But that's kind of getting away from the topic at hand. Proverbs 31. So I haven't actually set the stage or kind of talked about what that is. Would you like to kind of give a little bit of information for the viewers?
Well, from my understanding, it's been a while since I read it or anything, but like the narrative is constantly pushed that Proverbs 31 for like the ideal wife who's by your side and stuff like that, but still somehow subservient to you. I don't remember if it talks about like men being above women there or elsewhere, but I don't remember. But.
No worries. Okay, so Proverbs 31. Let's see. So the idea is that what was said is you want to follow Proverbs 1 through 30 so that you can get a Proverbs 31 wife, I believe was the way it was talked about. Was that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
No, I was stuck on what the Proverbs 31 wife is and everything like that. So
I've got you.
Just how that.
Let's see. So I'm going to read from Proverbs. I was going to pull it up in the Bible, but I've got it up online. A wife of noble character who can find, she is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She's like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still dark, and she provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate. She's clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom. Faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. You have this massive list of things that absolutely no human being can be. No human being.
I can't have a Proverbs 31 wife unless I have servants.
Well, you can't have a Proverbs 31 wife because that is a robot. You are not looking for a human. You are looking for a slave, and you are looking to work them to the bone. And even then, right, the worst thing is that even if, you were wanting to be a Proverbs 31 woman, you're not going to be all of those things at the same time. And that is going to be a source of shame and guilt. It's going to be a source of going, I'm not enough. I'll never be enough. And it perpetuates this really, really awful cycle of shame. And yeah. So how did that impact you? Talk to me.
I mean, I had a few relationships, and like my parents would always bring up like, oh, is she a Proverbs 31 wife or something like that? In order to I don't know, no, I don't think so. But
it's a good reason to break up with someone.
Is that all right? It's like, yeah, but like that crap in general. It's like with if you start with like really bad like epistemology, and then you apply that to the way that you like have your relationships, like no one's going to meet those standards.
No.
And then you're just going to feel really shitty about like whatever relationship you're going to be in, regardless.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how did you break that down? Like, at what point did you realize, oh, this is a really shitty viewpoint of the blueprint for women?
I mean, it kind of just came in tandem with like losing my faith and stuff like that. Like I just like, well, that narrative's kind of wrong. It's like, why would I even base any narrative about women off of something in this book? I don't think there's really any point in that. When like you were talking about the platinum rule and everything, like, yeah, I definitely believed in the golden rule, but like then when I actually started to think about how empathy actually works, how to actually like treat people how they want to be treated, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't need to be fucking putting these standards on people, and then when they don't meet them, we're both disappointed. And I can just like accept them for who they are and how they want to be accepted, and that's a much better way of looking at it, in my opinion.
Oh no, I I agree with that opinion. I just think that I want you to give yourself some credit here, because there are plenty of Christians who can also be like, no, women are humans and have their own minds, and don't need to follow impossible standards, and they could still believe. It's a different work. It's a different amount of deconstruction that you're doing. I've met atheists who are still raging misogynists. And yeah, a lot of them. And it's really, really sad, because they sit there and go, oh, well, I'm enlightened. I've already figured it out.
Comes down to like, it just comes down to like, what are you basing those beliefs off of? If it's like fallacious in nature, you can't use that to fucking justify bigotry or misogyny. You can't.
But
if you could show me some facts, no, I'm just kidding. You can't. If you could show me some facts of why,
facts and evidence,
then
but
you can do it. But no, that's not how it works either.
No, it's not, because
it just comes back to like empathy for me. Like it's just that's actually how I can treat people and they would feel better. So
yeah,
that's kind of all it is.
Oh my gosh, you gave me like 5 things and I don't know which one to pick. Sullivan, like, you were not logicked into it, so I do not expect to logic you out of it. That said, recognizing where your reasoning is fallacious can be a really good tool to be able to break down bad thinking, for sure. And
yeah, that's been like the biggest part of my deconstruction process, is just going back through like what I'm holding to be, and then, is it not actually logically sound or actually relevant? Okay, I'm just going to dismiss that, really, like, because it's Hitchens' razor,
I mean, yes, and that's way harder for me. That is a tall order. That is a really tall order for me.
Well, I mean, there was so much cognitive dissonance with religion that it's really easy for me to go back into that and be like, oh, I just dismiss that.
I think that I needed to break down.
I'm dismissing it for better reasons, I think now. Sorry.
No, you're good. So for me, I felt kind of personally attacked, because I felt like my viewpoints are who I am. And if you're attacking my thoughts, my views, then you're attacking me as a person. I didn't recognize that my ideas can change and I can still be Eric. Separating yourself from your ideas is a really, really big step. And even when you do make that separation, I think that we are motivated to justify our actions and justify our behaviors and our worldviews. And so if you grew up in a misogynistic environment and you deconstructed your religion, you may still be motivated to look for reasons to still be a misogynist, Yeah. And so, give yourself credit. I think that the idea that when you deconstructed your faith, all of a sudden you stopped viewing women the same way. Like, no, you had to do some work. You still needed to get there.
Yeah, that's just the shorter answer of it. But
true,
it was a lot of work just to like, I don't need to hold that belief really at all. It's based on nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I just need to separate like my thinking about myself as not separate from the natural world helped me a lot as well. Combining myself and my hubris, because like, I kind of think that like God is just like an ideal of someone's like best self. And if they can actually realize that that's what it is and they can bring it back to earth, they could live in reality a little bit more and understand that like, oh, it's like actually important to take care of and not be a huge piece of crap to people in reality.
It can be that. It can be that. I think that one of the last versions of God that I had before I let go of God entirely was that God was a version of my best self. Sure. But God was a lot more than that for me. For sure. You know, when bad things happened in my life, I tried to take solace in the fact that, oh, well, I'm part of some grand plan. Whatever bad thing I'm going through has to have a good reason because there's a loving God who set me on this path, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm getting off topic. I appreciate that you called in about the Proverbs 31 because I feel like if we're talking about breaking the mold and not talking about Ruth or Proverbs 31, we're losing so much. You know, it definitely needed to be brought up.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate you taking my call.
Sullivan, I appreciate you calling in. Take care, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Oh my goodness, I have so many people. All right, we're going to take a heavy one, you guys. Trigger warning. Let's talk to Bill in Pirate Country. Bill.
Oh, it's me. Hey, Eric.
Hey, so I saw you in the live chat. You were saying you've got something to talk about, but you don't know if you can. And I just want to tell you that you do not have to say anything you're not comfortable to talk about. And no one is judging you. And like, let's only talk about what you want to talk about here. It says that you want to talk about religious trauma, mental health, and family redemption, isolation. Like, what's on your mind?
There's
Bill?
a lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff. Fortunately, talking to your call screener actually helped with some of it, so I'm probably a bit less likely to cry right now. But anyway.
That's good. Bree is pretty awesome, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So to start off with, I come from a military family.
Okay.
And my immediate family, my mum and dad, are what I would describe as apatheists.
Hey!
Yeah, they just really don't give a shit. They really don't. Like, if anyone brings up religion, they're like, yeah, that subject's boring. We're really not interested. Which is like, it's fine, you know? And my mum was like, just make up your own mind.
Okay.
Anyway, but they had, so I haven't really experienced religious trauma as such.
Okay.
Although my dad's brother is a now retired Baptist minister. Now, the man that I call my dad isn't actually my biological father. That's connected, but anyway, he's my adopted father, and one of the earliest memories that I have of my uncle's family, my aunt, my uncle, who I love dearly, by the way, like they're my family at the end of the day. They love me, but one of the earliest memories I have of them is them straight up over dinner telling me and my mum that we were going to burn in hell because we didn't believe in God, and them also making very pointed comments about the fact that I was a child of divorce. Like, not directly, but you know what I mean? Like, subtle, sly comments, the sort of typical comments that Christians make, which most people wouldn't pick up on.
So I honestly was never able to fit in with youth group because I was a child of divorce, and that kind of conversation, that stuff always had me on the outs with them. But isn't it amazing, to casually be like, you're going to burn in hell. And, pass the potatoes.
Yeah. Exactly. Over dinner.
What? Right? How does anybody get invited back? Like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that because of the way biological father was, who was also in the military, in the same regiment in the military as my dad, and basically all of my mum's friends, like every friend they have, basically, were in the same regiment in the military. So they have known my parents for longer than I've been alive, and I'm like 45 in 2 months' time.
Okay.
So they knew both of them, right? So, like, I think because of how we treated my mum kind of had to just sort of hold on to that and be like, you know, okay, that's a bit of a shitty thing to say, but we'll just let it slide because ultimately my dad's a good man. You know, he is a good man. Like he and I have had issues because of the fact that he isn't my biological father, but he's a good dude. So I think my mum was like, now. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Bill,
what were you going to say? Sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. It sounds like you might be right up on your microphone.
Oh, right. Okay. So, it's probably because I'm using headphones. I'll just try to talk slightly quieter. Is that better?
We'll see. The audio is peaking. It's kind of doing that crackly thing, and I'm.
All right. Okay.
And wait, what changed? Something changed.
Is that better?
Maybe.
Does it sound better now?
Way better. Okay. Yes. Okay, good.
Okay, cool. All right, we're good. Okay. Now, where were we?
So
I heard a brain.
No, that's okay. So the point of the show is about breaking the mold and kind of deconstructing not just religious trauma, but those things that come with it. And so you were opening up by talking about how a family friend an uncle, right?
Yeah, my uncle. Yeah,
your uncle would come over and say that your family was going to burn in hell and pitied you because you were from a divorced family.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, so because of various traumatic experiences that my mum had, and the fact that I was born in the late 70s, 79, so the parents' way of dealing with things in the 70s was like, if you did something bad, you'd get a slap. If you did something really bad, you'd get a real slap. And coming from a military family, violence was just sort of a part of life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Now, those experiences led to me having a long struggle with my mental health and with addiction as a representation of my mental health.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So I was diagnosed. Sorry, carry on.
No. I'm just trying to follow. So you're saying that
I know it jumps all over the place. I'm sorry.
Honestly, Bill, I have a word for it or a phrase for it, just to kind of help contextualize that. Before I ever did call-in shows, I was a call screener for the Atheist Experience. And
I'm aware.
When I was a call screener, we would have people who would call in who had so many things that they wanted to say for so long and never gotten to say them, that when they finally got the opportunity to, it was just a flood. I called it popping the cork.
Yeah.
And, when we'd pop the cork on a caller, part of what we did when we had extra call screeners and we could is I would say, hey, let's just talk, And so, like, you're kind of in a position where it sounds like you're popping the cork. You have so many things you want to say, and they're all built to build up that it can be tough. And so I want you to know that you do not need to apologize, and it's totally understood. That
cool.
Yeah. So I do want to help guide this in a way that kind of has structure and all of that for people who are viewing, and so that we can kind of engage and talk about these things. So it sounds like you're saying that you kind of had a really big sense of shame around what your uncle had said to you growing up about you, like, Is that what you mean, or depression?
Maybe. So I was diagnosed bipolar stroke borderline personality disorder when I was 17.
Okay.
Which I think is hereditary from my biological father.
Okay.
And also, recently, when I've been to mental health teams, they suspect that I have PTSD because of various different things that happened in my life, but they struggle to diagnose that because of the bipolar. There is a point to all this. I promise you there's a point, and we're almost there. We are getting there.
No worries.
We're getting to the point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just trying to follow. Like right now, my immediate thought is, I am so not qualified to handle this. But like, help me there. Get me there.
Yeah, okay. And then, so jumping ahead, my nan has Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And she, about 8 years ago-ish, moved down to live with us. And at the beginning of the pandemic, before the pandemic, my parents would go away on holiday, and while they were away on holiday, I would go and see my nan. And
Bill?
Sorry, you still? Yeah, sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
You dropped out. It is peaking a little bit again, but let's see if we can kind of like see what we can. Either we can put it in a nutshell and talk about it briefly, or if you want to try calling back, we can try and fix some of the audio peaking for a longer conversation next time. What do you think?
I can actually put it in a nutshell right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So basically, pandemic hits. My parents are stuck in Vietnam and Cambodia on holiday. Can't get back because pandemic, no flights.
Yeah.
I have to look after my nan. So I had no choice but to sort myself out because I'm looking after at the time she was 87-year-old woman with Alzheimer's. And that really helped me sort things out. And I got myself on track. And it's been really great, and that is until about a month ago where she had a stroke, and then she ended up getting put into a secure home because her Alzheimer's has been triggered further.
Yeah.
And I'm no longer capable of looking after her, which has made my routine go from being a very set routine for like the last 5-6 years to a no longer very set routine.
Which throws everything off.
Which throws everything off. Yes.
Yeah.
And I know I'm aware that you are not qualified to sort of have this discussion.
I get
it.
Like I'm also just thinking back. Like, I don't know where to dig in and engage here. I don't know how to.
I get it, Eric. I get it. I do. Like, I understand that. It is super complex, and it was related to your statements at the beginning about generational trauma and how it affects us. But in order for us to really get into it, would require so much more explanation. And I get that it's probably not an appropriate thing for a
call-in show.
Call-in show. I get it.
But we do have a growing community. Have you checked out the Discord?
I am on the Discord, but I don't go there very often. But I probably should, to be fair.
I mean, just places for people to talk. You know, I know for me, when I'm waking up and I know what I'm having for breakfast and I know what happens at lunchtime and I know what happens at dinner time and when I'm going to go to bed and I know what my responsibilities are and what I need to take care of by the end of the day, my days go better. My mental health gets better. And being in a rut and being in a place where all of a sudden everything is upset and you're needing to create a new normal is a really, really upsetting and frustrating position to be in. You know, if I were you, I'd be finding myself getting angry over nothing and having panic attacks. And
pretty much.
I wish you the best, Bill. I can tell you're going through some shit, and
I'm sorry if it was. I genuinely apologise because obviously in my head, it made a lot more. It was a lot more an appropriate thing to talk about because it did relate. But
well, no, it probably still is. There's just so much. There's just so much
I know
there.
there is so much. You're right. There's a lot. There is a lot, and there's actually a lot more context. But again, that would involve a long discussion. But hey, it's all good. It's all good, Eric.
Hey, Bill, I'm sending you a huge hug, and I hope things, I hope you're able to find a new normal that can, be fulfilling and rewarding. And I appreciate you calling in regardless. And honestly, go ahead.
I was going to say a big hug to you. Like, I love your show. I honestly, I've sort of watched a lot of the shows over many years, and I'm really pleased that you're doing well for yourself. And my love to V as well, because I think they're awesome. I
will tell them. They smile every time I tell them.
Cool.
Take care of yourself, Bill.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Oh, I know there was something in there. It just, when there's so much, it can be hard to recognize all of the context that needs to be added. And so I really appreciate Bill trying. Let's roll right into our next call. We've got multiple callers, and I am digging it. Oh my gosh, there's an Am I the Asshole? There's cutting, oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk to Kyle in Ohio first. Kyle, you're live on the show. Hey, doing okay. It says in the comments, am I the asshole for cutting off communication with my parents over religion? Yeah, talk to me. What's going on?
Let's see here. Well, 2 years ago, I was on a phone call with my parents, and something came up about how their religion, makes them not such great people. That who they are themselves in reality are generous, loving, kind, and emotionally sensitive people. They taught me a lot of those things that I cherish in myself. Yeah. And it's so strange to also feel such anger and resentment for them treating me in ways that isn't consistent with other ways they taught me. And so they got kind of upset, of course. And I was like, look, I'm not, like I said, I love you and I cherish you, and I wish you guys were free of your religion because it would make you free to be better people. Less bigoted, less hateful, less rude, less fake. And somehow it came about that I was talking to them about a conversation we had 10 years ago when I moved out to move in with my future wife. And they were very upset, and that's a whole story in of itself. There was a reason I was moving out because they broke a promise with me. They claimed I was moving out only because I wanted to, quote,
live in sin?
Whore.
You wanted to
sleep with a whore.
Oh, nice.
So you wanted to be with that whore. And they said similar things to me before, as I was just starting dating this lady, Trish. I warned her actually when they met them that, look, they're going to be two separate things. They'll laugh at dirty jokes and they'll say certain things and they'll act certain ways, but when it suits them or when it's prudent for them to be pious, they're going to be the other way around. And just to be prepared for that. And I told them, you could be Mary, Mother of God, come down on a sunbeam, say you want to date me, and they'll still call you a whore. Yeah. And so when I brought that up, they denied it vehemently, and then tried to do whataboutisms about, well, you said mean, rude things to us, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what does that have to do with this?
Yeah.
Look, I'm not even mad. I'm not bringing it up. I'm just saying that that's a prime example of, I know you love Trish. I know Trish is good for me, but your religion prompts you when it suits you to say something so vastly, ghastly terrible. And that's the point. And then they started going off. My dad started yelling in the back, and what did they put in your beer? And they both should know by now I hate beer. I always hated beer. So the fact that they don't even know who I am or care and just want to insult me, I don't know. It just kind of triggered me. And so I texted my dad, fuck you, and blocked him. And I texted my mom after she messaged me after she hung up on me crying because I brought up they're not great people sometimes. I told her, she said, I love you and always will. And I said, I don't think you know what that means or how to do that. And I blocked her. And so so I didn't talk to them for like 2 years, like at all. She tried texting me a few times, and so I blocked her on another platform. I left my social media open for them to have a back way in to apologize or to communicate with me, and they never did that. They would just text Trish instead, my wife now.
The whore?
The whore. The slut, the whore, the terrible person.
Yeah, I there's a subreddit called r/oh no consequences. And I feel like that is like right there. Like, of course there are consequences to their actions, you know?
My whole life, they always discouraged me. Like, they would like certain girls I would hang out with and everything, but the moment they thought I was interested in them, they would badmouth them. And so they shot down all kinds of relationships. So I didn't really have a chance to be in a relationship. I listened to them too much. They made me too afraid of being sexually attracted to anyone or anything. Just all that purity culture shame.
Yeah.
Like, it was intense. I mean, it's only recently that I've really kind of come to the conclusion that I'm polyamorous and that all my sexual understandings about myself and it just, you know, so much wasted time and so much robbery of humanity and of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm 41 now. So
yeah, I'm almost there. I'm almost there, and for what it's worth, I don't think you're the asshole at all. I think that
I just felt for the longest time like I just was overplaying things, or maybe I tried to trigger it, or...
I mean, even if that, like, you are the child in that relationship. They are the parents. They are used, you know, it sounds like they're used to being given plenty of leeway to be assholes whenever it suited them. And you don't need any of that. I holding people accountable for their actions, you know, I don't feel like there's any religiosity that can prevent people from being held accountable like that. And so, yeah, no, if they're going to badmouth the person, especially you married this person, fuck them. Guess what? You get to create a new family. You did. And you don't need to keep that toxicity in it. No, for sure. If they decide to apologize, awesome. If they don't, or they want to play the victim, then they can do it in their own little corner of the world without you needing to be there.
They definitely play the victim a lot, and they basically quit being parents to all of us kids when I was around 10. They became parents to these adult men that came to their Bible study, and they ignored us and all the problems we went through and didn't parent us. And that was when their availability disappeared.
So fuck them.
They rode my life down to wreckage once because they made me believe I had to work to support them. And I had this job that ate up my whole life, 110-hour work weeks just to support us all.
Jeez.
And when I lost that job, my dad miraculously found a job within a week. He bled off me for over a year and a half, claiming he couldn't find work. And when there was no other choice, he finally found work. So I told him, I promise you, if I ever get the impression you do this to me again, I'm leaving. And with no warning and with no regret and no remorse and no help for you. That's it. And that's what he tried to do to me again. It just happened to be also an opportunity for me to move in with someone I loved.
Good.
As an adult.
Good.
And that's why they were mad at me. Because they thought that I should, you're just leaving us and abandoning us, and you abandoned me 20 years ago.
Okay, no. Yeah. So and also,
you're adults. Take care of yourself.
And also, children are supposed to go out on their own. Children are supposed to grow and, have their own lives. They're not supposed...
They wanted us to grow financially to take care of them.
Yeah. No, doesn't work that way. Sorry.
I feel guilty because I genuinely don't think I'll be remorseful when they pass.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
They weren't all evil.
You don't need to be all evil to be damaging in people's lives. There could be great parts of them. I'm never going to speak to my father again. Ever. Ever.
I figured you would understand.
Yeah, ever. There are family members.
I've been in contact with them for the last 3 months, kind of.
I have stopped. I I stopped contact with my father when I was 23, 24. I'm 37. And I will never speak to him again. Were there good parts of him? Sure. He was funny. You know, he was definitely a people person. But that does not redeem him or make him worthy of being in my life.
Yeah. I guess a part of me feels a little guilty too, because they did support me when I was building my business I have now, and my mom taught me a lot of what I know to start with and to do what I do now, and I'm grateful for that. I just don't think I owe them anything else in return after that year and a half of, and you know, it ruined a relationship I was going to have with a girl I grew up with as well.
Yeah,
I wasn't able to date her, do anything like that. They literally basically wrecked my life.
You can owe somebody money. You don't owe somebody shame and guilt. You don't owe somebody subservience. And you definitely don't owe somebody such that they can badmouth your life like that. That's not, no. No. You know, I have strong opinions about when it comes to supporting adult children, what goes into that. And I am happy to say that, you know, I do have some parental figures who are wonderful.
Yeah, I don't have that.
No, not wives.
I've never had that. I was always more the parent in our relationship, and I've
Yeah.
not had anybody to really confide in that way.
It's time for your parents to leave the nest, to grow up, and to deal with their shit. I can firmly say, Kyle, you are not the asshole. Have you talked to a therapist about it?
No.
I think you should. The only way that I've been able to get to where I'm at is by talking to some good therapists. I've had some bad ones that did not help, and I've had some good ones that really did. And let me tell you.
Yeah, I know how that can be.
Yeah.
I've researched it a lot, and I know people that have gone. I don't have a mix between time and money to do it right now.
Do you own your own business, or are you working for a company?
I'm a micro business. It's just me, my wife.
So I'm trying to run my own business doing the show.
It's hard to get off the ground.
It is.
Now.
It is. And I was able to find some state aid to help. I don't know what that looks like in Ohio. But it's definitely worth looking into. Really, honestly, I know it's a lot of legwork, but if that is possible or available,
I would do like, finish up some taxes and things like that to even get considered.
Well, are like owning your own business.
Like my income.
Yeah, well, I mean, owning your own business. Did you go through the healthcare Obamacare stuff?
No.
Check it out. They will work with you. Seriously, honestly, I know it sounds rough, but like I went through that, and what they'll do is they'll take your income or whatever. They'll decide, how much they can help with it. They'll get you onto a plan, and you can go from there. It really is worth it.
Yeah, it was. I had a discussion last week with my wife about, hey, both of us need to go to therapy, and we need to figure out who needs to go first.
You both need to go. Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
Kyle, I wish you the best. No. Fuck that. Fuck the whole blood is thicker than water thing. I'm so over it.
Yeah, I've never really consigned to that.
Yeah, so
people have to earn a certain level of respect and a consideration. It shouldn't just be freely given.
Damn straight.
People bleed out that way.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I'm gonna move on to the next caller, but thank you for calling in. And as far as I'm concerned, you did exactly what you needed to do.
Yeah, part of me thought that, but you get gaslit your whole life with a narcissist, and you kind of wonder. I think it makes you have trouble understanding. They used to use respect, that word respect and honor, against us as a weapon, and to the point where I'm not even 100% sure what that means anymore.
No. No, I get it.
That makes me in the everyday life wonder if am I being too rude to that person? Am I just defending myself? Am I doing undue harm? Am I being disrespectful? What does that really mean? Am I being disrespectful to myself by not standing up?
Yeah.
Not sure how much pushback I should give, basically. I just run hard at everything. I just don't deal with it. I'm just like, you know what? You trigger me to feel I need to defend myself. You're going to get it. Like, you're going to learn a lesson with me if you haven't learned it with anyone yet.
Well,
and that's just kind of how I approach life.
It sounds like that's the only way that you were able to safeguard your well-being. I think that there are other tools that you can.
I just worry about losing empathy and compassion for other people as well.
Well, do you ever? There was a study. Do you remember Baby Einstein?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It was classical music that they would play for toddlers and infants, and they said that if you did this, if you played this classical music for them, that they would have increased IQ, better school, whatever. Right. That was like the promise of it. And there was a study done that showed that parents who bought this expensive Baby Einstein program for their kids were seeing these results, but upon closer inspection. More research. The Baby Einstein stuff isn't what did it. Do you know what
the
I mean?
attitude of the
their
approach.
If you're the kind of parent who cares so much that you're going to buy the Baby Einstein shit for your toddler, you're probably going to be a more involved parent.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you keep that empathy, you want to make sure that you're treating the people around you that you care about with love and respect, with kindness. You don't want to push people away because you value them, and you let them know that you value them. I feel like you're doing a lot towards making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I just, I'm not sure if I do value them. I'm not sure if I feel much towards anybody, really. It's kind of hard to tell.
Definitely definitely look into talking to a professional, because there's so much there, and just talking to you now, it sounds like you're on your way to being the best version of yourself, and I think that getting some professional help, just an outsider who can listen and talk to you and help kind of reflect those things back to you, would be really beneficial.
Okay.
All right, Kyle.
I'll try to
take care of yourself, and thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye. Yeah. No, I feel like going back to breaking the mold, right? Going back to the core issue in this episode. You guys, this is what it looks like. This is exactly what it looks like. What a amazing thing for these callers to be opening up in these vulnerable places, different places in their path of growth, of change, and not just change for themselves, but dealing with, the environments that, like, it's not always just, I have an anger issue, or it's not always just, my dad was an asshole. But when you can come from an environment where toxic, abusive, or antisocial things are promoted, it takes a lot to deconstruct those. And I really, really appreciate everyone calling in so far and being open and kind of sharing where they are in that journey. Heck, I know I'm still dealing with that in so many different places. But let's move on. I want to talk to somebody who always makes me smile when they call in. SKEPGEN in New York. You're live on the show.
Smile now.
Well, okay, well, now I'm not gonna.
Damn it.
Fuck you, buddy. So what do you want to talk about today?
So I want to talk about breaking the mold. I have a lot of, experience with what that can mean and where that goes. Just like personal goal part, like I was the first one in my family to ever get a master's degree. I think I was the first one to even get a bachelor's degree.
That's
I was
awesome.
the first one to not be at least cultural Catholic.
Okay.
But like the thing I think that is more important in talking about this specific thing is, as you know, and through our flirting in the past, as a fellow poly pan individual, I was also the first one ever in my family to come out in that way.
Yeah.
My family were, if anyone's watched the show Sopranos.
I have not. I couldn't get into it. It was I found myself like, I'm going to watch a fun show, and then winding up with more anxiety than I did when I started watching.
Yeah.
I kind of had a BoJack Horseman response to The Sopranos, but if you can give me some context around it, I'd be happy to follow.
So the thing that I think I would point out the most is like that culture of like, the older white dudes all hanging around complaining about the good old days. The idea, the constant use of either blatant or very subversive racism, in terms of like, you're just racist to everyone. It doesn't matter if they're white or black. If they're a different type of white, there's still racism that you can like play with on their side, whether you be Polish or Irish or whatever. My own mother was the first one also in the family who didn't get with somebody who was also like with this cultural American Italian type of idea. And so like, I just like one story I have is like I remember when I was later teen years, and I was just hanging around my, actually, should I tell this one or the other one? So for the more insidious racism, I'll start with that one. I had an uncle I had two members of my family who were tied to the mob.
Okay.
They both have passed, one kind of 2 years ago, the other one like 10, 12 years ago. But I remember as a very young child, I was sitting in, every time I would visit, this uncle would talk about how spooks were taking his jobs.
Oh no.
And for a long time, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, why are ghosts taking my uncle's jobs? What is up with my uncle and ghosts? Yeah. And it wasn't until later I figured out that he was talking about black people, much later. And then the more outward one is like, I was hanging out with my uncle much later, different uncle, and these two little African-American girls came up and, giggled and said hello and then ran off, and he just blasted the N-word under his breath. And
so you know what kills me about that stuff?
Yeah.
What absolutely kills me is the tremendous amount of entitlement that I feel like somebody has to have to get to a point where they're that racist. Like, it's not that they're thinking that like they're in competition for jobs, right? Like with the first thing, with the first example, it's not like, oh, I needed to compete against these other people. It's that they're taking my jobs or our jobs as if he is owed and deserves those jobs, right? And to interact with like children and just absolutely, I that shit blows my mind. But help me here. I know that you're like the core of your call in the notes is kind of changing those family dynamics in a better direction. How have you kind of shifted or moved things? Like, what does that look like for you?
So like, when I came out as bi, it was kind of a slow process, like by, each family member, like gaining that knowledge over time. I have noticed sorry, another story. So like during The Sopranos, there was one episode where they find out that one of their members are gay.
Okay.
And that just happened to be the first episode I ever saw, and also also I was sitting between my two uncles who were watching it at the same time. And holy crap, the things they were saying through that whole episode of like, you know, oh, I bet he has a butt plug in his ass now, blah 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 blah. And I remember just sitting there going, oh my God, like I cannot feel safe coming out today.
No, not at all.
But yet, as soon as I did, and as soon as they found out, I've never heard them talking like that ever again. Now, whether or not they're just not saying it around me is a different issue, but I also have cousins who talk to me, and they say that they've changed dramatically. I'm the first, as I said before, the first person to go out with a non-white person. My current significant other right now is African American. They're their outside, at least, overview of you know, what that is and what that means is completely changed from the generation before. Like I hear stories about how like my grandmother, if somebody brought a black person around to the house, like there would be a connection. There would be an upheaval unlike ever seen before. It was just not allowed.
Yeah.
And I can see now that just one generation, because of when, you know, the generation after my grandmother's generation, because of my exposure with them, they were able to see that these stereotypes are not what they're supposed to be. A bisexual person is not some flaming faggot, for lack of better term. You know, these people have the same values. Like I grew up in the country. I didn't even grow up in New York City like the rest of my family. Like,
so do you think that it was just having personal exposure?
I think that's a huge part of it, because like they tell stories of how like back when they were growing up, how, you know, they had these insular communities where the Italians were here, the Polish were here,
Irish were here.
Yeah, and you know, they if you crossed into that territory, if there was a gang of kids that saw you, they'd probably beat you up. So yeah, I mean, I do not see them doing that, like having these thoughts anymore.
Yeah.
Sure, there's still problems. There's still like old school Italians from Queens, you know, they still have their problematic outlooks, but definitely your engagement with people. And this, again, this is a big thing, and I want to put this as a warning, a flag. You know, I don't expect everybody to do this. I had the genetic propensity for being a large, bearded, full hair, you know, looking intimidating dude. So it's very different for someone like me to be able to engage with family, not being, you know, not fearing any sort of backlash of any sort. And a lot of people don't have that engagement. So I'm not like saying, hey, this is what you should do. This is what works.
If anything, what I'm hopeful for is, you know, like, were you listening in when I was talking to Kyle?
Remind me which conversation was that? I probably was.
And Kyle's the one who was asking if he's an asshole for cutting his parents off.
Right. Yeah.
Right. His parents had interacted with his fiance and future wife, and after meeting her, they started all the shit talking. It sounds like in your situation, the people in your family who should be kept are the ones who, as soon as they saw, you know, oh no, this is a real person. Oh no, all of my, you know, preconceptions don't really fit into this mold. I know and I love Ethiopian, you know, I know and I love, you know, these people in these other groups, and humanizing them has caused them to reconsider those kind of racist notions. It definitely is heartening to see that happen. You know, to know that people can change their views, you know, after just a little bit of exposure and a little bit of empathy. And I definitely, what I'm taking from that is that, you know, what I would tell you is, you know, those uncles who are homophobic as shit, the fact that they, I'm assuming, still want to be in your life and treat you respectfully, like, that's fucking wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I was just over at one of their houses the other day with my boyfriend, who's also black. So like, The fact that like that's a massive change from just a generation previous from what he grew up with.
Absolutely, and I'm really happy to hear that. And you're right. It probably benefits you that you could probably beat their asses. But still, I'm really happy to hear that you've got that you've got that story that you've seen that change in them. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I again, there are still issues. Especially like, I have one aunt that I will never bring my boyfriend around. Hardcore Trump supporter, hardcore. I look at her Facebook every now and then just to see, if there's been any change. And I see transphobic messages. I see all this stuff, and I'm like, I turn to my boyfriend. I'm like, you're not, unless it's a giant family function where you can avoid her. You're not. I'm not bringing you around when she's around.
Yeah, I have family who, when they do that shit, yeah, I don't want to be around them anymore. What was funny is I thought it would be really nerve-wracking and anxiety-inducing to try and draw that line, but I remember talking to somebody who I really, really cared about, a member of my family, and they refused to use my partner's pronouns.
Mm.
And I said, that makes me not want to be around you. Why would I want to?
I mean, that's another huge thing. Like so it's very strange because there's a couple of parts of his family, because he's trans, where I either have to say only they or have to use their name. They do not want me to use their proper pronouns around their family, which it just makes me twitch.
I know, right? Yeah.
But I have to at least try because he's asked me to do that. But like, oh my God, you have no idea how hard it is.
Ethiopagan? I do. Ethiopagan? I do. Some deep part of me just appreciated that camaraderie there. Yeah, no, it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks because you want to defend, and stick up for somebody that you love.
Mm-hmm. But there's like my grandmother, who of course has all of the issues that she has, but even it's a very awkward thing, and maybe it is an intimidation factor. I don't know why they're so giving when it comes to me. But my own family and my grandmother, who knows that my boyfriend is trans, even up, 90, I would say 85% of the time, uses the correct pronouns. But once in a while she slips and she says, "Oh, sorry, he," and I'm like, "Holy shit, Grandma! Holy fuck!"
Yeah.
This is the same woman that wouldn't let black people around, and now here I am with my black trans boyfriend, and she's at least trying. And then I go to my boyfriend's family's house, and they're not. And I'm just like, how is this a thing?
Yep. Nope. Yep. I see you. I see you, Ethiopagan. I appreciate you. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we still have to. Hey, it's Oktoberfest. You need to come over to New York and we can have a bunch of good beer.
You know what? At some point, I will get there. Right now, show's not cutting it, but eventually, at some point, I will. Promise.
All right.
All right. Hey, thank you for calling in. You always make me smile. I appreciate you.
All right. Love you. I'll talk to you later.
Love you too. Take care. All right. Let's talk to our next caller. Oh my gosh, it is running late, but I do want to make sure. Roy has been sitting and waiting for over an hour to talk to me. Roy, I so appreciate you. Hey.
I was nervous to call in because there was already people here, and I just called like less than a week ago.
No worries. That's okay. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I didn't want to be too sad, so maybe you can ask me questions, or maybe transgender issues since I'm trans, but...
No worries. Okay, so it says that in the notes that you wanted to talk about dealing with non-accepting family.
Well, that's sad, but I did tell that to Bree, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would love to have a conversation that is engaging, that we can both kind of bounce things back and forth on. And if you have something that you'd love to talk about, then I'm here.
Trying to think of something that I personally broke the mold with, because sadly I'm kind of lost for thoughts.
No worries. I think that coming out as trans and dealing with all of that shit is breaking the mold in a massive way.
Oh yeah.
And also,
sorry.
no, it's okay. And also, you are way, way more than just a trans person. Like, you actually have ideas and thoughts and opinions and feelings other than just the fact of who you are. And so limiting you to just talking about that feels weird to me. So, you know,
Well, you mentioned your dad. I wouldn't mind talking about mine if it isn't an imposition, or because
yeah,
I usually don't talk about him.
if you want to talk about that a little bit, that's, I understand that. Did you have a similar dad situation?
Yeah. I think he was pretty cool, though. I definitely would still have contact with him, hopefully. But I never got to tell him I was an atheist, and I think that discussion would have been very, very fun.
Oh, yeah?
Because he wanted me to be a free thinker, so I don't think he would have been like, how dare you? Because that would have been just straight up hypocritical. I would have been like, but I'm a free thinker, Dad. Like, you asked for this.
Yeah.
Or you asked me to at least try and think for myself. But
How
yeah,
long-
he doesn't exist more if that's not obvious.
It sounds like, did he pass or just effectively passed?
Yeah, he's dead.
Okay.
Currently chilling in a nice urn.
Well, as long as it's nice. Was it tasteful? Is it a tasteful urn?
Yeah, it was this weird wonky pattern, and he loves green, and he likes really hippie colors. He was definitely really into drug use and concerts when he was younger.
Okay, that sounds like it fits. Yeah, was your dad a believer or an atheist or?
Oh, yeah. I don't know exactly what, but he was so proud of being Catholic. Like, some days, I don't really remember the context, but he said, "We will rule the world again." And I can still, like, hear his fucking voice, and I'm like, oh, God, now. Like, I don't want Catholics ruling the world at all. But growing up, I was just like, oh, he's doing his thing again.
Yeah.
But he never, like, imposed it on us. Like, he invited us to church, but he never made us go, even when we were younger. Like, I really respected that.
Yeah.
I still chose to go, though.
Hey, I think after the last couple of conversations, this is hearing about your dad, even with that, is kind of a bit of a balm, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, let me know if you want to wrap up the call, because I can talk about him for a little while. I need to. I don't like talking about him because I could probably cry later about it, but it's good to grieve.
It is.
It's nice to talk.
I don't know if that, like, well, I don't know if this is the right venue for it, but why don't you join us in the Discord? Come and say hi.
I was thinking about it. I forgot about it last time I called. But yeah, if there's $1, like, Discord thing, I could afford that. Being unemployed, like, I can manage
It's free.
$1 a month.
Don't spend money if you don't have money. Just join the Discord. It doesn't cost money.
I went to the Discord link and it just sent me to the Patreon, so I just assumed.
Oh, really?
I was just lazy. Sorry.
No. I
Maybe
believe
I
it's
clicked on-
tiny.cc/SG Discord, I believe is the link.
Yeah, okay. I'll probably join later, but
Yeah.
my dad might have been similar to yours. Like, looking back, my parents are both very abusive. Oh, and now I thought of a way I'm breaking the mold. I'm actually trying to deal with my problems.
Good.
Like, my parents were kind of, like, pretty shitty. Like, mine have never tried to diss my partners. Like, they're always like, can I, like, background check them? Which is a bit odd, because I don't, like, let any, like, Joe, like, fucking be my partners.
Yeah.
But that was it. Like they never called them whores or trollops or anything like that. That's more of something I'm called.
I have not heard the word trollop in so long.
I try and say funny words to be unique. I want to be remembered.
Roy, you sound like the kind of person who absolutely will be. And just so we can remember your dad, what was your dad's name?
His name was Edward, but a lot of people called him Eddie. And with Mexican people, or his people, since he is from Arizona, he was called Eric for some reason, but they called him like Eric, like a different way of saying it. Like he had multiple names, but he was very well known. He was a pillar for the family, and when he passed, it kind of like closed that door to a lot of the family. And I know that's a really heavy turn, but it's part of the story anyways. Like, the only reason my family stuck around was because of his charisma, because of his joy, his laughter. And it hurt so bad slowly realizing that none of my family cared after that. We were all the people he was around because he married into, like, this family. But, like, it sucked no one ever seeing us after that, really.
That does suck. I being half Mexican myself, I can tell you that, lots of family in Arizona, lots of family in East LA and Vegas. That feels like that's where we congregate.
Yeah, I just know he can speak Mexican, and we're right on the border, so we're technically Mexican. But my family always called themselves Native American.
Okay.
And I mentioned in the last call, like, we were turned Catholic because of probably some sort of colonization, like my Nana.
That's right. That's right.
If it were up to her.
Yeah.
Or I hope so, at least. I don't really like going to private schools. They're not as fun as public schools. Generally.
I'm losing the thread a bit. I think I might just be needing some coffee.
You're good. But I have no idea what to talk about. I just wanted to call just in case people dropped off.
Roy, you're a sweetheart, and you waited an hour just to do so. Thank you. I hope to see you in the Discord.
Eat.
Right.
Get coffee.
Will do. Take care, brother.
Bye.
Bye. All right. I do read super chats, and I want to make sure that I do that. I did not do that last week, and I felt awful for it. So, EOMan's code 84 sent $10. Thank you. Says, happy Sunday, Eric. I currently live in Seattle, but I'm moving away at the end of October. It'll be great to meet with you guys before I leave. Hop in the Discord. Let's see if we can work something out. Yeah, I'd be happy to meet up for a beer. And John Klein sent $10. Thank you, John. Says, here's to the Show's Not Cutting It Fund and or the Second Mic Fund. Thank you. I really appreciate it. If you like the show and you want to support it, hit the like button, hit subscribe. All of those things help. If you want to help keep the lights on, you consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. Everything goes into making this happen. I want to thank the volunteers. I want to thank our amazing call screener, Bree, and all of our callers. This has been a heavy episode. I should have expected it. And I'm glad it happened. I hope to see you all in the Discord. And yeah. Oh, one other thing. Everybody, can you help me with something before we end the show? In the comments, I'm having trouble coming up with episode titles, with new topics and things to base the show around. So if you can think of any, pop them in the comments. Help me out here. I'd appreciate it. All right, everybody. I will see you next week. Until next time, I'm glad we had this talk. Oh.